Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Criterion Collection Review Series, where I'm going through my entire personal Criterion collection and reviewing every movie. And today we're going to be looking at a seminal classic of the adult drama in the 1950s, and that is Elia Kazan's On the Waterfront, which is number 647 in the collection. Now, On the Waterfront is a movie that is very difficult to talk about without getting into the context. So first I will begin by describing the plot of the movie, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of everything else. So taking place on the docks of Hoboken, New Jersey, On the Waterfront follows the story of Terry Malloy, played iconically by Marlon Brando. Malloy was once a top prize fighter, but now he spends his meager existence working on the dirty and crusty old docks of New Jersey, being pushed around by the mafia-esque dock workers union. But then after Malloy is involved in a hit where the union kills someone that they think is going to testify against them in court, Malloy begins to be conflicted morally with this decision. On one side, he has the union, which includes his brother, who has essentially taken care of him his whole life. Big quotation marks in terms of taking care of his life. On the other side, you have the morally righteous priest and a nun who has just come by to visit, played wonderfully by Eva Marie Saint. And the film follows his general struggle as he tries to figure out which side he's on, if he's going to testify, if he's not, while also falling in love with Eva Marie Saint's character. So to get into that context I mentioned before, the whole idea of the film, and definitely the way the film is framed, is easily inspired by Elia Kazan's own experience, where, from what I understand, Elia Kazan essentially ratted out many of his peers who were with him in the actor's studio by selling them out to McCarthyism and to the Un-American national hearings, trying to find people who still affiliated with the Communist Party in the 50s, and well, Elia Kazan gave them names. And while it did ruin his reputation, it didn't really ruin his career, and he went on to make On the Waterfront, which is a movie about the informant, about the whistleblower, about, the one who testifies in court, and finding a moral reason to justify it. And that, for me, gives the movie a bit of a bad taste, not only for Elia Kazan, who sold out a bunch of his friends for being communist when that really wasn't the worst thing at all, but also the way he treated Barbara Loden, which is an entirely different story. Barbara Loden was his wife at one point, who made one of the first and most fascinating independent films made by a woman, Wanda, but that's a whole other discussion. And so on that level, it's difficult for me sometimes to really connect with On the Waterfront. It is a movie that I really, really admire, and I acknowledge what's great about it. But I just think it is so distant from myself, along with the context that you cannot escape, especially with this Criterion release, that it's difficult for me to really become emotionally invested in it beyond sort of an appreciation of cinema. And cinematically speaking, in terms of the art form, there is a lot to appreciate here. It cannot be understated how different On the Waterfront is from a lot of different adult dramas that were coming out around the time, where I feel like the style before this, and it was changing around the same time, but the general style was very melodramatic, a lot of nice lighting, beautiful people, generally melodramatic. But because a lot of the actors, specifically Marlon Brando, come from the New York's Actors Studio, which focuses a lot on naturalism, on becoming the character, of method acting, it gives the movie this sense of realism that is still really palpable today. Of course, through the performances, Marlon Brando carries this movie on his shoulders a lot of the time. And he's a performance that is still really iconic and engaging and emotional even to this day. He knows exactly when to pause. He knows how to improvise with the objects around him, to kind of mess with things, to really inhabit this character. He just totally nails it. Eva Marie Saint is also great. I don't think she has a lot to do as a character, which is a horrible, byproduct of the time. But what she has, she does a really good job. I mean, in general, the performances are really good, and I think Marlon Brando's main performance helped to kind of raise everybody up to that level. On top of that, you have the cinematography, which is just fascinating. It is a black and white movie, and the way the movie was shot, everything seems so gray and dreary and drab. It seems like the docks are forever and overcast, and it gives it this very dark, melancholic look that again helps to reinforce this isolation that Terry Malloy feels, and his general depression and directionless life. It's also important to mention the dialogue and the way that actors speak in the film. Where the writer of the film I think it was the writer Elia Kazan, where they actually went to Hoboken, New Jersey, and interviewed a lot of these dock workers and picked up on a lot of their vernacular and the things they said and incorporated it into the film, where I'll be honest, there are a lot of times characters say things and I don't even know what they're saying. I don't know what they mean. But it gives it this authenticity, right? It gives it this sense of uniqueness and of trying to capture this moment and this feeling again to reinforce the central conflict of the story. And I think that the central conflict on paper is engaging, and I think Brando's performance really sells it, of this moral conflict of, well, do you do what's right, or do you do what you've been taught to do, what you've been known to do? And you have this infinitely tragic character who has just been through so much, and there's the famous "I could have been a contender" scene, But what I think a lot of retrospectives and discussions of the film leave out is just how sad that scene is, and how the way it plays out makes it sadder. Where, spoilers, but in the scene, Marlon Brando's brother is pulling a gun out on him, and is ready to force him to do something really terrible. And instead of shoving the gun away and getting in a fight or yelling at him, Brando decides to play the scene with a lot of empathy, a lot of sadness, a lot of regret. It's kind of like the final realization of like, oh man, you've never been there for me. You've never looked out for me. And it's all coming together. And it just really sells that moment so well. And even the ending, which is a little melodramatic, I think Brando really sells and really gets you engaged, and you do get involved in what's happening and you want to see how it ends. If there's anything I can say that I strongly dislike, it is the romance in the film. Now this is an issue I have with a lot, and I mean a lot, of films made before even the 1980s, 1990s, where the romance feels very weak, it feels very underdeveloped, and I don't know if the performances sell this romance as much as they need to, where it feels a little tacked on, a little out there, and I get what they're going for, but it just didn't really connect with me. I just didn't really feel it, I didn't really sense it. And I think it does add a lot of emotional depth to these characters and does give Eva Marie Saint something to do, but it just doesn't fully connect to me. And I think that is the biggest issue with the film, is there's just some distance to it for me. There's something about it that I can never fully connect with, and I think a large part of that is knowing the context behind how the film was made, of knowing Elia Kazan's past, what led to the making of the movie, and how it is difficult for me to see this morally righteous character be almost like a self-insert from Elia Kazan, who's trying to justify his horrible traitorous actions. It's just very iffy to me, and it just keeps me at a distance from a film that I overall think is really great, has a lot going for it. And while I will say, even though I'm not a big fan of the movie, it is worth getting for the special features alone. So this release from Criterion is probably one of their most jam-packed that I have ever seen. And I wrote down some of the special features here, so let me try to go through them. So we have a ton, and I mean a ton, of interviews, behind-the-scenes discussions, and documentaries, a lot of them revolving around Kazan specifically. and about how the actor studio changed Hollywood, about the court hearing, about the making of the movie, about the performances, just everything you could possibly imagine. There are also features about the actual corruption within the dock worker unions on the docks of New York and New Jersey, going into different real-life stories and events that inspired the film, and just giving you a lot more background into that world. And the thing I find the most fascinating, and it definitely shows the extra mile that Criterion will go to, is that they have 3 discs with this movie. One disc is the movie and all the special features. The 2 others is the movie presented in 2 different aspect ratios. The normal version of the film is presented in 1/66:1, which is considered the normal widescreen, the sort of ideal way to watch the movie, the neutral way to watch it, if you will. You then have 1/33:1, which is the traditional full screen, which is how a lot of films at that time were shot and released, with that sort of larger or more squarish aspect ratio in mind. But then you have 1/85:1, which is CinemaScope widescreen. And there's a whole featurette in here about why that's important in the history of aspect ratios, especially at this time where Hollywood is trying to find different ways to get people to leave the home, leave the TV, come to the theater, and a lot of directors and cinematographers specifically had to account for every different aspect ratio. So depending on how you watch the movie with which aspect ratio, you were seeing different elements, and different things are highlighted, and different little choices are seen. And it's just very, very fascinating. And the booklet itself is also really jam-packed, if I can just show it off here. Well, first of all, here's the inside. There it is. And then we have the booklet here, which contains an essay from Michael Almeridia. I hope I say this. I hope I say their name right. Which is just giving the context of the film, analyzing it. Seems a little bit too sympathetic to Elia Kazan for my taste, but it is still a well-written essay. You also have a public statement from Kazan regarding his court decision. And then you have 2 articles about the phenomena on the waterfront that most likely inspired the film. So all of the different, real-life events that happened. Even a story about a priest, which is what inspired the priest character. Just absolutely stuffed with special features, where if you love this movie and it's very important to you, and you want to learn more about Kazan and everything else, this is the release for you. Criterion has got you covered. They will have you watching for hours and hours. And so that's why I don't regret owning it. It's just for the historical context and to learn more about the film industry at this time, about Marlon Brando, about all of this different stuff. But I just have to reiterate that I think it is a great film. In a sense, it is a well-shot movie. It has all the makings of a great movie. It just doesn't fully connect with me, and I just cannot get past Elia Kazan's own past to be able to fully embrace and enjoy a movie that's clearly, at least in my head, very personal to him and his own experiences. Either way, thank you all for watching. What did you think of On the Waterfront? Do you agree that you can't get past some of the contextual elements, or do you not care about that at all and just are here for the performances and the drama? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But if you like this video, please like it. If you want more people to see it, please share it. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Where next time we're going to be looking at a very different movie, which is the 1980s cult film, social satire, punk rock movie, Repo Man. But thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.